Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hi, folks. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and I'm delighted to be here with you. Thank you for joining. The show is indeed called the Avrum Rosensweig Show. That makes a lot of sense. And it's all about honoring humankind. And people often ask me, what does that mean? What it means is recognizing that we, civilization, creations of God, if you will, have done brilliant things in our history. We have created magnificence. All one has to do is listen to Beethoven symphonies and to take a look at our world from an urban point of view. I was driving with my son the other day and he said, Daddy, it's incredible what our city has in terms of roads and beautiful forestry, and the ability for things actually to work and for traffic to, mostly anyways, to be able to operate. And I said, yeah, it really is. And this comes from the minds of humankind, nothing else. It stems from the thinking and the collective ideas of people who have come together and said, this is what I think we can do. And they set about trying, and they took risks. And they developed our city and other cities in the world in which we live, not all of it, much of it, into something which is truly, truly almost miraculous in nature. So what I want to do with my podcast is to point those things out that in the vernacular are very cool, are very beautiful, are very special. And I want us to take a look at it and feel very, very good about who we are as God's creation. And if you're an atheist, as just creation. I bring interviews to you that I feel are very inspiring, hoping that you will emulate from things from my guests that they speak about. Now, today we have a very unique show. I am not only the host, but I'm part of a panel. It's effectively, we're going to call it Rabbinical Children. And by that, I mean there is something highly unique, I feel, being a rabbi's son, about being the son of a rabbi, being the son of a cleric. Now, it's not local. It's not indigenous to only Jews. I could probably do this show with children of imams or children of ministers, not priests, but ministers. And likely many of the outcomes would be similar. Now, today, I have with me people who I'm going to start calling friends. I interviewed both of them. All you have to do is go back and have a listen. And I enjoyed my time with them so much because of the fact that they're very eclectic in nature. And they're lovely human beings. And they're lovely Jews. Let's start with Shira Dicker. Shira, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? How's
great.
everyone?
I'm really, really well. I'm sorry for the passing of your dog.
Thank you. Thank you. The last time we spoke, Luke was sitting on my lap.
Yes.
Yeah.
How you doing with that? I know it can be very difficult.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And it's somehow tied into our conversation today in ways that I'll get to.
Okay.
And I also just want to modify my answer a little bit, which is the answer I give these days, that I'm doing okay in a world that is not okay. The world is very, very not okay. And every day it seems that it takes on a unique quality of not okayness, right? We never know what's going to happen. So it's about trying to keep equilibrium. And you asked me how I was doing in the aftermath of Luke's death. I was really not okay for a few days. And I finally embraced being in pain. I think there's something in our common consciousness that wants to resolve pain very quickly. We want to feel good. We want it to go away. We want to be over it. And that's not how we're built. And
Am,
when yeah,
am I correct when you started the soliloquy here that you were going to say the world is fucked up? Were you going to say that?
I could say that.
Okay. Was there swearing in your household, being a rabbinical household? We're going to get to that in a sec. Was
Jud-
there?
Judiciously, the fun thing was as we got older, my father, oh my God, the best. I mean, famously, and of course, I want to share the podium. One of my dad's famous declarations. Unfortunately, it was the final year of his life, and I went to visit him. He was in rehab. He was between hospital rehab and then finally home, thank God. But one Shabbos, I just drove out to see him. I wanted to see him. He was in a rehab center on Long Island. I'm in Manhattan. And I walk in and I expect my father to greet me with, good Shabbos or, oh, Booby, it's so great to see you. My father looks at me, goes, what the fuck happened to Shabbos?
That's so good to hear. That makes me so happy.
That's so good.
That makes me so happy. My father did not utter one single swear word in his entire life, and neither did my sisters. But I swear like a sailor. So, Shira Dicker is she's the daughter of a rabbi, and her father, God bless his soul, was Henry Israel Dicker. He served as a spiritual leader of the Marathon Jewish Community Center from 1955 until 1977. And then he went on to become a psychologist, which I find fascinating, by the way. He is someone who was seen as conservative in nature with a feminist bent to him. And I think one of the funniest quotes that you said, or you actually wrote in one of the articles, was, while your father really worked hard to be liberal and really worked hard to raise you in an environment which was ensconced in feminism, you said that I love this. You said hearing the word penis and vagina from him was the most hilarious thing in the world. I love that. We also have with us today Neshama Carlebach. How are you, Neshama?
Yeah, I can't beat that. You're
No, you can't.
trying to think of some dirty thing to say, and I don't think I can keep up with Shira today.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how you do throughout the panel. I'm sure you'll catch up. Neshama, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Neshama Carlebach is the daughter of Shlomo Carlebach, a world-renowned singer, songwriter, educator, and spiritual leader. He was considered by many to be the father, the pioneer of the Kirov movement. The Kirov movement is bringing Jewish people, mostly young people, closer to God and closer to Judaism. And he was a brilliant, brilliant man. He was the student of some incredible rabbis, including Rav Aaron Kotler, who was the forerunner, really, of the big yeshivot, the big Talmudic schools. Rabbi Carlebach was a brilliant man. He was a beautiful man, and he passed away in 1994. Shira, when did your father pass away?
I'm coming up on his yard site, October of 2020.
He should rest in peace.
Thank you.
My father was a rabbi in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, which is about 1 hour west of Toronto. He was a very religious man. He would be considered Orthodox, probably touching on Haredi even. He wore those blue pinstripe suits, and I'm honoring him today by wearing my jacket, my tie, and you can even see my black velvet kippah. He was a pretty special man. He really was. He was one of those individuals who was not only a pulpit rabbi, but he was an activist. So every Friday afternoon, he would go off to Guelph, Ontario, which was about 30 minutes away, and he would visit Jewish prisoners and non-Jewish prisoners. And the magic about our childhood, my four sisters and I, as rabbinical children, was that he would take us with him. And I remember distinctly sitting in the Guelph Correctional Services, and my feet didn't reach the floor, so they were dangling. And I would watch these prisoners walk by me in these orange suits, and I was convinced somebody was about to murder me. It was terrifying. But the flip side to that was, as I got older and I looked around and I saw that my friend's upbringing was completely different than mine, dramatically different. And while there was great magic to it, there were great challenges as well. So let's touch on both of those. Neshama Carlebach, are you today? Are you a rabbi's daughter?
Yes.
What makes you that?
That's my birthright. I guess.
I'm saying more like psychologically in your soul.
Oh, psychologically.
Yeah.
I can't really argue with that. I don't know any other way. This is who I have always been, connected to where I'm connected to. I think there's no one I have ever met in my life, and obviously I haven't met everyone in the world alive today, but I don't believe there's anyone that has, a normal childhood. We've all got our stuff, and sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's harder to live with parents, and then of course to live without parents. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. And being who I am is just all I've ever known. So yes, I am a rabbi's daughter.
And if I were to ask you, tell me one thing, perhaps two, within your character that makes you a rabbi's daughter, practically speaking.
I think I'm a good listener. And I think I learned that from witnessing my father, but my mom as well. Just making space for others and their pain. A lot of people told all of us their life stories, and a lot of people felt comfortable enough and trusting enough to share. And that's one of my most favorite, parts of my childhood, that we had a home with too many people in it for me sometimes, but space for everyone in their pain, a lot of compassion. And I think it's made me a good listener for sure. On the other hand, I think being a rabbi's child, and specifically for my family, I think I've gotten very good at sort of hiding what I'm actually thinking while I'm, I think I hide well what I'm actually feeling in public. Was
that part and parcel of being a rabbi's daughter? Did you have to hide your feelings?
I think I had to hide my feelings being my father's daughter, and I guess it's also just being more in the public eye, which I was my whole life. So I got good at lying and good at pretending, which serves me sometimes. But I think that came with the territory as well.
Shira, are you a rabbi's daughter today?
Absolutely.
How so?
Absolutely. And everything Neshama is saying, our lives are different in terms of the particularities, the specificity, right? Each of our fathers, who they were uniquely, the artifacts. And I see I'm the only American born person here. I'm out.
I was born in New York. What?
Oh, I thought you were from Montreal.
No.
Did I not? Oh my God.
I grew up in
Shira, don't start with us. Don't start.
Do you know me at all?
I do not know her. She's like a dear friend of yours.
No. I grew up in Toronto. It's true, but I was born in New York.
Okay. All right.
I'm dual citizenship, so I fit between the two.
Sorry to misbirth you, like the equivalent of to misgender.
Yeah, we've seen
but
that.
No, I'm so a rabbi's daughter today at the grand age of 63. And Neshama, just what you said about lying, and it's not all bad, right? There's different a lie is not a lie, like with everything. There are certain demands that were placed on us that are not terrible. There are things. Somebody said to me yesterday, "Oh, you have wonderful posture." I was like, "Yeah, you know what that's from? That's from coming into shul every Shabbos during like Revi'i. My mother timed it just so, and it's a conservative shul, so there was the parting of the Red Sea, the two main sections with these gorgeous wooden pews on either side, and my mother, the first lady, with us. I thought of us as the first geeks. I felt like I was my height when I was 12, and I was like hunched over. I felt like Igor or I don't know what, Godzilla. And so I hunched over, and my mom made me take dance lessons, right? And it's not so terrible sometimes to play a public role. I mean, there's a lot to say. I don't know if I want to show all my cards at this point in the conversation, but I will say one thing. The one way, and I think about this a lot, and it was one of my dad's sermon tropes. And my dad was a really, really great orator. He influenced me as a writer and as a public speaker. One of my dad's famous tropes was, "What is responsibility, my friends? The ability to respond." And, that's tied in with Al tamod al dam re'echa. We can't stand idly by, right? And I think I'm so influenced by this ethic, and that's what the rabbi does. The rabbi responds, that is the first responder, and the rabbi's kids are there, as you detail, Neshama, to hear the life story, to hear the tsaris, to hear the need.
I love that. This
Yeah, I
week,
love that too.
this parsha, this week we're learning about nedarim, and if a woman makes a neder, makes a vow, then her husband has the ability to wipe it out if he responds within a certain period of time. But then it's interesting that if he hears it later, time is up, because just as you said, we must respond. You can't wait to respond. You have to be a part of it. You have to be present in that moment. And there's all kinds of other complications. You talk about being a rabbi's daughter, that a man has the ability to take away a woman's vow and decision making and everything else. But from this week's parsha, it always kind of captures my heart that we must respond. That's our mandate. We have to be a responder right away. And I think it's definitely a characteristic of growing up with people who serve. That we learn how to be present, we learn how to respond, we learn how to just show up. And I think that is a beautiful thing.
Neshama, I find myself very often as a rabbi's son speaking Torah. Whether I'm with non-Jewish or Jewish friends, it doesn't matter. I'll quote Perkei Avot, of which I did the other night, Ethics of Our Fathers. Who is a wise person? One who learns from everybody. And I'll do this regularly. Do you use Torah a lot in your speech?
Probably, but I don't call it Torah, and I don't refer to the parsha unless I'm with Jews, because they don't know what that is.
What do you call it?
I just say, I don't know. I don't have to think about it, but I would just speak philosophically. But of course, it's always Torah. Torah is everything.
Yes, that's something you said in our first interview. Torah is everything. My father, Rabbi Shira Rosensweig, he died in 1989 at 61 years old. He was a very young man. Neshama, how old was your dad when he passed?
69.
69. And Shira, your dad?
He was 89 and a half.
He had a long life, thank God.
Long life.
And as I said before, my father was by nature a very conservative human being. Very, very conservative. He also was one who looked like a rabbi. He would wear a fedora, right? And as I said before, he would wear a pinstripe suit every single day with a tie mostly, unless he'd be throwing a ball around with me and he would take his tie off.
Oh.
Yeah. To look at my father was to see almost Moses, and I know I'm being hyperbolic here, but he had that look about him, which was very almost angelic in nature. The challenge to me was he didn't often come down from that height. So I would often say to him or think to myself, Dad, you're a rabbi. You have 250 families as your followers, your congregants, and you're also my dad. And I want you to be more accessible to me. Shira, was your dad there for you? Was he accessible? Was he human with you?
Yeah. So if we're going to be giving analogies of who our dads looked like, my father was a John F. Kennedy lookalike.
Yeah.
Crazy. I was thinking, man, why didn't I grab that picture off the piano so I could show it? But trust me, he did. He had the same square forehead, the same hair. My father had really intense blue eyes. And I'm going to talk, just inject into this something which is another big part of my life is I was adopted. My parents adopted me when I was 5 months old. And when I did meet my birth father, many, many years later, I was 49 and I sat opposite the table with somebody with my coloring, brown eyes, brown hair, Sephardic, darker skin. I said to myself, you know what? My dad has blue eyes and looks like JFK. Yeah. And it was an acknowledgement. I didn't want to diss, my birth father and I had already met, but it was so clear to me at that moment. My father's the guy with the blue eyes, you know. But you just asked me a question. My father was accessible. My father, when I went through a phase where I was kind of snarky and judgmental, and I was like, I can't believe he's like not more famous or doing this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
And
too. Yeah.
I came to realize as a young adult, my father became a clinical psychologist in 77, opened up a practice, and he was instantly successful. And one of the funny things is, I live in Manhattan. I started the shul I started davening at was Anshe Chesed, and there's a minyan ma'at. People started coming over to me and say, "Is your father Dr. Henry Dicker?" He was my marriage counselor. We got divorced. He was my clinical psychologist. He was ba ba ba. Um, and my father was fatherly in all the roles he played as a rabbi, as a psychologist, and as a father. That was his prime thing. And I came to realize he was he was a microcosm guy. It was about our inner circle. Now, listen, as a teenager, I was like, could you please love me a little less?
Yeah.
Stop obsessing about me. There were moments where I was like, oh my God, could you guys just like join a commune? Could you start dropping acid like so and so's parents?
Right.
You didn't
Right.
want that dress.
No, I know, but I had the vigilant, on it parents who were really, really, really involved with my life in a time where it seemed to me that the best thing was to be neglected. But of course, as a grandmama myself now, I realize what a gift.
It's interesting, by the way, just to touch on what you were saying, that you were adopted at 5 months old. You wrote about that in an article, and you said it was a communal event. And I really related to that because I am told to this day by individuals who were born prior to 1960, which is when I was born in Kitchener and part of our shul. I was at your bris. And they go on and on about who the moil was and how the food was and what a beautiful thing it was. 6,000 people were outside the shul trying to get it. Well, it's exaggeration, right?
Okay.
But that's part and parcel, I think, too, of being a rabbinical child. There's a lot of mythology out there.
Yeah.
Neshama, your father, especially in his pictures, he does exude what I refer to in my own father, that angelic look. And he was known by thousands and thousands of individuals throughout the world for his work as a singer, as a songwriter, as a rabbi of Moshav that he started. He was in San Francisco, in New York, in Toronto. He did a lot of rabbinical work. Was he accessible to you? Was he a father in the way that we would want?
You would think he would not have been accessible to me, but he and I were the closest of friends. He didn't really feel like a father, to be honest. He never disciplined me. He never, until later in my life, he never really told me what to do or showed me what to do. We were just best friends. And I often talk about how I went to girls' yeshiva when I was young. It was a hard place for me. And there was a payphone in the very, very basement. It was like many, many layers down. And I had my father's phone card. And every day as a child, I would go and call him. And somehow I always knew his number at a hotel.
Yeah.
And when I called, he was always there. I don't remember any time that I called and my father didn't answer. But how did he do that when he was on stage and he was with people? But somehow I would call the hotel room and I knew every area code I couldn't remember anything for school, but I remembered every area code in the whole world. And I found him and we would talk. We talked every day, many times. He was my person on every level, but physically he was hardly with me, which was a struggle. But of all the things that I kind of reminisce about, his emotional presence
Yes.
was a very, very big part of my life. I'd like to hear from you, Avram, because you started sharing a little bit and then you deflected, which is also a very good rabbi's son trait.
Thank you.
But tell us why you feel that your father was potentially not as accessible to you.
I think it's a few things. I think number one is my father was born in 1928 in
Mm.
Toronto. And looking at individuals who were fathers from that time, they weren't effusive. They weren't emotionally open. And it was a struggle for my father to be to show a certain amount of authenticity to me. Anyways, I think my sisters had different experiences than I do. I've spoken to them about it. He was really made to be a rabbi. He really was. He was a leader by nature, and that meant that he would be able to steward hundreds and hundreds of people and do it magnificently. He was also warm and loving to the children in the shul. I have this imagery in my head, these memories of children running up on the bima on Shabbat and sitting on his lap, and he hugging them and displaying a lot of affection toward him. And I felt a certain amount of jealousy.
Mm.
I wanted more from him. And I realized today that he had a very, very hard time doing that. Now, this is not a deflection away. This is me being the host. Shira, it seems like your father was able to show you his love and his affection. Did you have open discussions with him? Would he be there in terms of, yes, this is who I am. I want you to know who I am.
Yes, yes. I mean, I'm laughing because I remember last time I told you the story when my father, he was, it's significant. Also, I'd say I'm almost as much a psychologist's daughter as a rabbi's daughter because of the era in which he was studying psychology, and it predated his getting a doctorate in 77.
Yes.
My dad and I had some humdinger conversations. I mean, we had a lot of fights also. And in a good way, fighting as a way of conflict resolution. And to this day, I am so frustrated when somebody who I care about will walk away from a useful, important, contentious conversation that needs to be had. I'm a bit of a warrior, not just a bit, I'm a lot of a warrior. And I'm somebody who really stands on principle. Doesn't mean I'm always right, but I believe in the principle and I'm willing to go to the mat. And it really makes me nuts when the other person doesn't care enough to resolve it.
Yeah.
It's not fighting lishma. My father and I had some significant conversations. There were some conflicts growing up. I want to say that I had two remarkable conversations in my young adulthood with him. One was about a faith crisis that I was pretty sure he had. So my dad was this popular rabbi. He was at the Marathon Jewish Community Center, conservative shul, 60s, 70s, very liberal and yet very traditional, right? The davening itself would not be that different than what was happening in modern Orthodox shuls, except we didn't do Anim Zmiras. And when I went to an Orthodox shul, I'd be like, this thing is going on forever in the most annoying
At the end of the service, yes. Yeah.
So I was like, Adon Olam and Ein Keloheinu, fine. Like, I'm good with that. We don't, and Aleinu, I don't need this other hymn that I associated. The other thing was duchening. There was no duchening in our shul, which for those listeners who don't know, it's the Kohanim blessing the congregation. We didn't do that, but it was very, very similar. But women were on the bima. My dad was a big proponent of women's rights. He did believe, of course, women should be ordained, and he saw the patriarchal nature of Judaism as reflective of the time in which the law was created and evolved, not as something from God. My father also believed in divine inspiration, right? Room for interaction, room for human involvement in what came down to us, right? And we had unbelievably great theological discussions. But the two conversations I had with him in my young adulthood that really stand out was both times I was walking with my father in Jerusalem. And there were things I just thought about very, very deeply. Something happened that didn't make sense to me that I needed to work out. I said to my dad, Abba, I know you entered therapy when your mom was dying. My grandma Blanche died when she was 62. It was a cancer death. And this was the day of leave no stone unturned, where they basically tortured a patient to death in the name of trying everything, right? As opposed to, it was pre the Jewish community's recognition and embrace of hospice, which I got to give credit where credit is due, really comes from the Christian world. It's
Yes.
more from the Catholic community and other denominations. And thank God now it's part of our communal understanding of how to deliver care. And so my father entered therapy. He was really having issues with his mother's death. And I said to him, Abba, when you made the decision to leave the rabbinate after 21 years, was it just a career move or was it related to faith? And he said to me, what do you think? I said, I think you had a crisis of faith. He said, I did. That was one. And then the other one was really the most healing conversation I ever had. So I told my parents, the adoption did not fuck me up. If anything, it's a cool fact of me. It's my Superman narrative. I came from one planet. I arrived in this little capsule. I was found by these wonderful people and family and a community who still remember the kiddush that was made for me. What fucked me up, I told my parents, was that when I wanted to go away for college, they wanted to keep me close and have me live at home. And this is a whole, by the way, they weren't alone. I was just, Neshama, Lisa Mayer, right? I was just up in Maine last week doing a literary program at Lisa Mayer and Shirley Dresner's shul. And Lisa also went to Queens College. She's a few years younger than me. And we bonded over the fact that our parents were part of a cabal of Jewish parents in Queens who basically said to their kids, why should we spend money sending you to these schools like Barnard, Brandeis, Berkeley? Like, we've got this perfectly good school at home, Queens College. And we were like, so, my parents, I fought incessantly. I went to Ramaz, which is, a pretty well-known Jewish day school, kind of a preppy high school. And I was a bit of a star student. I wrote poetry and danced and, and I could have gone pretty much to wherever I applied. And anyway, huge fights, like unbelievable fights in my house. Like one day I want to turn this into a play, actually. Because there's something very funny. There's something painful, but also hilarious. And also there's the love in there also. There was real love. And my father was sincere about couldn't bear to let us go. But I puzzled, like, what was it? Come on. 1 week, it was the money. 1 week, it was this. 1 week, we love you too much. And I was like, what? Other parents who send their kids away? And so finally, I'm telling you, I thought about this. I was obsessed. And I finally hit on a theory. I got the theory together. And I think I was a parent for sure. I was in my 30s. And I'm walking with my dad in Jerusalem. It was Shabbos. And I said, Abba, I think I got it. I think I know what it was. You ready?
Ready.
I said, you were a congregational rabbi during the 60s and the 70s. And what did you get at 3 a.m? Rabbi, my daughter overdosed. She's in the intensive care. Rabbi, my son just joined the Moonies. The Moonies. Remember the Moonies?
Yeah, I do.
Rabbi, my kid just is dating a non-Jew, whatever. Every horrible outcome for a Jewish parent was there 24/7. The crisis, right? Neshama, like the families that were coming to your house, the people. And my father came up with a theory. Where does all this happen? On the college campus where there's a dorm. So he said, you can go to a campus without a dorm. And so my father thought about it and he thought about it. We walked in, he was in silence. I was almost at the point where I was like, say something. And he said to me, you're right. I think that's what it was. And then there was a tikkun to this. And the tikkun was when my dad went into surgery a few years later, he had open heart surgery. I took him. I was the child who took him to the surgery in the morning, and I wheel him in. He's wearing one of those shower caps. He's on the gurney. I take him as far as those 2 doors. I've got to say goodbye. I think it was like 5:30 in the morning or 6. I said, Abba, how are you doing? And he said to me, I was up all night. I did a din v'cheshbon, thought about my life. And I thought, if I die, I have no regrets. I have a good life, but I don't think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to make it. He said, but I also was thinking about something else. And I realized I have to tell you in case something goes wrong. And that's that I'm pissed off at you.
Is that what he said? Really?
I said, what? Like, we're going into open heart surgery?
Yeah, the last thing.
Is this like a bad Jewish joke? Like, you're giving me guilt? I said, Abba, what are you pissed at me about? And he said, I'm pissed that you never finished your master's degree.
So what he said? How interesting is that?
And I said, Abba, I said, the reason I never finished my master's degree is money, 3 children. Like, I could never, I'm working like a maniac. I'm hustling. I'm, barely like, why I never finished it. He said to me, when I'm in surgery, I want you to go on your computer and I want you to find the program you most want to go to. And I want you to apply, and mommy and I will help you. First of all, listen to how brilliant. It took my mind off the surgery.
Yeah.
I went on and I knew what program I wanted, and it's the program I did. It was the Master's in Art and Culture Writing at Columbia. I applied, I got in, I got half scholarship, and my parents paid the rest. Tikkun, done, forgiven.
That's lovely.
Okay.
Wow.
Neshama, it's interesting because when Shira speaks about her father being angry with her, there was an article that was written, and at some point in time, you were angry with your father, as we all go to that place. And your father turned to you and he said to you, "You're beautiful when you're angry."
That happened every time.
What an incredible response.
He never answered me. That was his way of deflecting. That was his patriarchal pain in the butt way of not responding to what I was.
He would not address your emotions.
Oh no. Well, not if it came to his behavior. He would address it when it came to the world. But if I was ever frustrated with him, or if I thought he was traveling too much, or I thought his health was in danger, which was likely what it was, he would say, "You're so beautiful when you're angry, my love." And that was it.
Ah, you see, I thought that was just a beautiful thing that he said.
Oh, no, it was incredibly annoying.
How about the Rebbitzin? We haven't talked about the Rebbitzins at all. Was your mother more responsive to your emotional needs?
Definitely.
She was.
Definitely.
And she is today?
Yes, very much. Yeah,
I
talk a lot.
I talked about the magic of growing up in a rabbinical home, and I think about the Passover Seder being prepared by my mother so beautifully. God bless her soul. And then my father would come in this gorgeous tailored kittel. How would you describe a kittel to people who don't know what that is?
Like a doctor's jacket.
Kind of, right?
Embroidery.
But it was beautiful, and he would stretch out his arms and bless us. And I could have sworn that I was, watching Moses on Mount Sinai. Neshama, you said that during duchening or during services, the priestly blessings or otherwise, that you would crawl under your father's talit, and it was a very beautiful and safe place to be. Can you speak to that magic?
Yeah, I didn't sort of. I feel like when you describe your father, that you really put him on a pedestal.
I do.
In a lot of ways.
I do.
I see. That's really sweet and special. And
although if you came with me to therapy,
of course,
you would hear a different narrative.
But it's all true.
It is all true. Yes, it is.
It's all true.
It is all true.
My father, when I say he didn't address my emotional needs, it's really not true. My father was really my closest friend. And when I had an issue with anyone but him, he was completely present for me. He just couldn't hear my complaining about what I thought he should do. So to be very clear, his embrace, his presence for me was the most comforting, the most soothing, the most healing. And I miss it even now. So being underneath his talus in his arms, without the 20 billion people who were in the room sort of on top of us. That was pretty cool.
Now, you married a rabbi,
I did.
Rabbi Menachem Creditor.
Yes,
Is there something in that? Were you looking unconsciously, perhaps, for a
I
rabbi?
really hope not.
Not that you were marrying your father, but the thing that rabbis bring to the fore, that compassion, that love, that intellect, the thinking, the divinity within the home. Was it part of your checklist?
I didn't have a checklist. I had gotten divorced, and I was positive I would never love anyone again. Actually, just Menachem and I were friends for over 10 years, and he was a very big support and love in my life. Our birthdays, I think I said it on when you interviewed me, our birthdays are one day apart. He's October 8th, I'm October 9th.
Yes.
So we were birthday buddies, and then we both had, like very sad dating lives. So we would complain to each other. He was divorced, I was divorced. And then we fell in love over the phone, and it had nothing to do with the fact that he was a rabbi. But if I, break it down, then of course it had something to do with the fact that he was a rabbi, because he is love and compassion and warmth and humor. But honestly, he's so much himself and not at all like my father. I mean, my father's going to be gone 30 years. So it's kind of an amazing thing that in some ways I don't even remember some of the little things. I wasn't looking to replace him. But it's a very great honor to live with a rabbi who is in service.
Yes.
He works 24/7. He is constantly with people. He's at this moment on a mission in Israel right now. I think he was in Be'eri just an hour ago. And this is where he is. This is who he is. And I'm in awe of my husband. And I feel very blessed that I get to live with that kind of human. I feel blessed that I had my dad too. In whatever way I had him. Let's be honest, wasn't typical, but to have had a relationship with someone who is so big-hearted, so very well-intentioned, so kind and loving. That's how I experienced him, and that was a gift for sure.
Is there a rabbinical narrative that you understand that other people may not understand? It's the discussion about the community, the congregants, the responsibilities of a rabbi in a rabbinical home. I'm guessing you got some of that from being a rabbinical child, and now being with a rabbinical home with Menachem, that would continue. Is that accurate?
No, I mean, he doesn't have a pulpit. So he's the scholar in residence for UJA Federation. So he has a massive community, but it's not the same. But I think that anyone who lives with someone, you get to understand the ins and outs of their mind, the way they think, the way they work. And, in my experience, my husband's work is love, bringing meaning.
Yeah, it is.
Helping people get married, bringing children into the world, mourning with them, crying with them, grieving with them, listening to them, helping them to find answers. It's glorious. Nothing better.
I want to point out to you, by the way, that when I talk about my father in terms which are clearly reflecting some difficulty in my growing up years as a rabbinical son, the compassion on your face is very palpable.
On my face?
Yeah, very palpable. Yeah, it's really clear. You have a very compassionate look.
Thank you.
And I think...
I'm sorry for you. I get it. When each of you talk about your fathers, I get it. I get it. I smell it. I see it.
Right. You understand the fragrance. Now, let me, and I appreciate you saying that. You really do actually make me feel very good about this whole thing. There is a theory that growing up a rabbinical child, and I'm directing this to Neshama, is like being a B star in a movie. It's like being not the main star, the secondary star, right? And I can distinctly remember having certain things in my life that were much easier because I was the rabbi's son, right? I would head up right to the front of the shul. On Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, my father would come down from the pulpit and sit with me for the first 20 minutes of Psukei de Zimra, the beginning service. And I felt like $1 million. The flip side to that was that if I was with my friends and we were talking amongst 5 of us, let's say, I was the one that was yelled at. You're the rabbi's son. How can you do that during the services?
Yeah.
So it was sort of this back and forth of being a star, but being watched very, very closely. Neshama, was that your experience?
You're a boy, and growing up Jewish, I feel like Shira, I'm sure, would have a lot to say about this. Women are treated very differently than men, than boys versus girls in our community. You were right in front of the bima, I assume.
Yes.
I was not. I had different experience. I was judged for sure, but people didn't think of me as important because I was just a woman. Even now, that's still a narrative that I have to handle, that I have to get past in my life. You were very important being the rabbi's son. If I had $1 for every time someone said to me, too bad, you weren't born a man, born a
Really?
boy, how lucky your father would have been. Oh, please.
Really?
Oh, constantly. Shira, did you get that ever?
Never. See, and I think
Conservative Jew. You were lucky.
it's denomination.
Yeah.
And it's also maybe it's, your dad was European and there was that aura of others around him. My father was born in Brooklyn. My mom is from Ohio. There was something very American. No, not at all, actually. Although my brother had the big bar mitzvah and my sister and I did not have bat mitzvahs. That's for another thing. I've never been able to figure out that one, actually. It doesn't bother me enough, but I've used it creatively.
You should have one now.
I've thought about it, and I haven't thought about it long enough to come up with the thing that feels like what I actually would want to do. I've played off. I've done it in a kitschy way. I've done like, the rabbi's girl presents her belated bat mitzvah dance party. I've done kind of cool, edgy event things around it. It's an interesting thing, but I could see that, Neshama,
You should do it.
We'll do it online.
Think about it.
Shira's podcast bat mitzvah.
Right? Dude, I had 3, and each of them were awful, like worse than the next. So I'm glad that you did.
You had 3?
What? Where were they?
Israel, New York, and Toronto.
Why were they so awful?
Because it was not about me. I didn't have any choice. I didn't read I still to this day have not read from the Torah.
Oh, you must.
I have to. Actually, Menachem started teaching me last week because I really want to. But I never read. I never, I was never, women were not seen, not just me. I wasn't alone. Women were not seen as important. So even though my father loved me, I know he loved me very much. He tolerated the fact that I was a woman, I think. And I think he took a lot of crap for that too, putting me on stage. It was very hard for him. Kol Isha. It wasn't an easy road for a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi, to empower his daughter. So I guess I just took your question in a whole different direction.
Which is fine.
If you felt like a B star,
a B star, yeah,
that's very interesting. I think it is a mixed bag of both elation and acknowledgement and despair. Like, why are they looking at me more than my friends? And you are the center when you're the rabbi's son, I think.
Would you change anything in terms of how you grew up?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Ask me, sure.
In light of what you just said, you had your challenges. You felt invisible a lot. Are you happy with who you are, where you came from?
I'm definitely happy with where I've landed right now. I'm still in weekly therapy. We need that very much around here.
All do, yes.
I'm happy with the lessons that I've learned, and I'm really honored to be the mom that I am, the partner that I am, the artist that I am, and the friend that I am. And I don't believe I would be me without my experiences. So no, I couldn't list my regrets. I wish some things would have been less painful, but you can't really wish that way.
Shira, there's a theory out there that rabbinical children, and Neshama makes an interesting point. We definitely should make a distinction between the sons of rabbis and the daughters of rabbis. There's a palpable difference. But there is this theory that rabbis' children end up in three different ways. One is that they celebrate the religiosity of their household and what their father and their mother teach them. And they go forward and they become rabbis themselves, right?
Mhm.
As an example. The other theory is that they cannot wait to eat a Big Mac on Yom Kippur, right? Which is what I did, by the way.
How was it?
It was tasted so good.
Did it? I've never done
Oh, it was marvelous. It's marvelous.
that. Interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
keep going.
it was great. And then the third theory is that there's the rabbinical child who grows long hair, let's say the boy, and he, goes off the derech, as we say, goes on a different road, comes back, finds his center at some point or her center, and kind of lives with the blessings of being a rabbinical child, but by the same token, doesn't come too close to it. Where will you put yourself, Shira?
So, it's interesting because I'll borrow from the previous question also about redo or do-overs. And I will say that the first time I was in a shul and I saw the rabbi's kids acting like complete meshuggahs,
Yeah,
I could not get over it. It was New Rochelle. It
Of
was
course.
Temple
of course.
Temple Bethel. And
I
God
was
bless
there last Shabbos.
you were.
Right, I was.
God. So we lived in Westchester for 7 years. The amazing Rabbi Mel Cerner was the rabbi then, and Cantor Lawrence Avery, who was a real opera singer. And I remember Rabbi Cerner's little boy Ari was a complete. I mean, he was he was like an unguided missile racing through the shul, and I could not get over the fact that he was allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, if only. But it's interesting because Neshama, I hold with what you said. We are the people who we are because of all the things that happened. I took a lot of rebellion underground. I didn't feel I needed to be perfect. I felt that I was not revealing the full dimensionality of who I was at the time. But what's interesting now is owing to the magic of Facebook and social media and the fact that I'm a complete yenta, I am now in touch with so many of the people from the community that I grew up in who I wasn't friends with because one of my mom's, I don't think she did it deliberately. I was about to say one of her shticklach things. We weren't friends with the commoners, and I don't. She didn't mean it that way because my mother became a social worker after she was a Rebbitzin, egalitarian, but our friends were our friends from Camp Masad or Camp Ramah and our Jewish day school, which at that time was North Shore Hebrew Academy, not really the kids from shul. And it's interesting, there was a separation. I don't know why we weren't more entrenched in the community. And
It's hard for rabbis to be friends with their congregation.
It is, if not impossible.
yeah, and the school was more orthodox. It's funny because we were like this weird hybrid, like we used the Shabbos clock on television. Like, it was like all of
You're
this
one of the lucky ones.
orthodox stuff, things that didn't make sense about kashrut, which I actually in my short story collection, I write about these parents having this complete illogical kashrut protocol when it comes to what they can or can't eat at the diner, which makes no sense. Eggs are beseder, completely disregarding the fact that they are being prepared with bacon, right? And the baked goods, they use lard, for sure. But it's
It's kosher for Pesach. So.
It's lard, but it's kosher for Pesach. Yeah.
exactly. I will say that I was a behavior problem as a child because outside of my community, I just let loose. I mean, I was as bad as the worst boy. And until I became just, obsessed with boys as a young teenager, probably around 12 or 13, and that became my obsession. I was just like, I was a troublemaker. I was constantly being kicked out of class. I was causing trouble in camp. I ruined the Tisha B'Av program at Kef Masad Gimel by cracking up in the middle.
Eicha's funny. Eicha's funny.
Yes, I was so, and it's one of my sister and my cousin's favorite story of how it was actually the drama counselor's fault for teaching American children a song about a fallen soldier whose name was Doo Doo. And,
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I hear you. I
and
would do the same thing, Shira.
I was the one who started laughing 4 seconds into it and ruined Tisha B'Av. I saw Gimel in 1972. And did a variety of things, and it was definitely an outgrowth. Like a boy, my behavior was a little bit more akin to the way boys are, who are, forced to be a certain way, and then afterwards they're like, but I'll kolela, like I embrace everything. And it's formed me, it's informed the kind of mother I was. In a lot of ways, my kids, like, their misbehavior was nothing like the way I was. And so, what's funny is I tell my oldest son, Adam, who's about to turn 40, God willing, Mirza Hashem, we're going to celebrate it in the Italian Alps in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
My son, I accuse him now at 40 of having a belated adolescent rebellion where he and I argue about Israel-Palestine issues. Because I said, you were like a lamb during your adolescence. We never fought. You would link arm in arm with me when we walked down the street. It's so funny. I was a very chill, non-discipline heavy parent. And I save the thou shalt nots for truly serious things like safety things, or menschlichkeit things. I didn't even have a bedtime. What's funny is seeing my daughter, who has 3 kids, bedtime is sacrosanct. Everything goes in cycles.
Yeah, she went the other way.
Yeah, my mother, bedtime was like, I don't even want to tell you. It was like at 4 in the afternoon. And so I was like, bedtime, my children will fall asleep of their own accord after I read them 10 million children's books and cater to their every need. And my daughter was like, Mom, that was whack. So, everyone, it's funny to me. It really is, like, really funny and touching the way, if you parent with love,
yes,
even if you parent with love, you're going to make mistakes. Every parent makes ridiculous mistakes. And it's up to, if they have the privilege of becoming or choice, if they choose to become a parent, they get to correct it or try to correct it themselves.
Yeah.
And their kids will tell them how they fucked it up.
So I want to pick up on that. That's the most interesting point. Neshama, I know that you're a mother of 5. I have one son.
I have to be very, very specific. I'm a mother of 2, a stepmother to 3.
Okay, good. I have a son by the name of Noah River, and he's my only child. He's 18 years old, and he's a beautiful kid. I often say he's, and I had this vision of how I would like my child to be. Noah is that. He's got just a wonderful neshama and a beautiful character, and he's interesting, and he's obnoxious, and he's all of the stuff that I love. I try my very best to connect with him as much as possible, emotionally, intellectually, and other ways. We have long talks. I'm not adventuresome in terms of going to the Alps, Shira, as you are. That's not my way. I like to, as a yeshiva bocher would do, I love to sit down and read a book and talk and speak intellectually. I analyze things, and Noah and I do that a lot. I do my very best to be emotionally available to him. I really work on that. And I have my challenges, but I try hard. So in terms of the rabbinical stuff that I learned as a child, what I call the magic, I also try to bring that into my home. So I have a very good friend with an Ethiopian woman whom I've known for a long time, and she has a very Ethiopian way about her. Very interesting, great imagination, articulates ideas in a much different way than I do. I introduce her to Noah. Excuse me. People who come into my world, I've dealt extensively with the homeless. We would have homeless people come over to our home. I would try to give Noah, I work very hard to give Noah that sense of the world outside of us and bring it into our home so that he can experience it in his own way. And as he moves forward, understand that life is not just a very small circle. It's much broader than that. It's much more beautiful than that. So, Neshama, my question to you is, how are you a mom versus how you were raised?
Wow. Um, my children are the center of my existence. They're 13 and 17. They're at camp. I see them more than any parent should be seeing a child
Yeah.
when they're away at summer camp.
Yeah.
They are my collaborators now. We're playing music together,
Yeah. I love
which
that.
is tremendous. So we've played music over the time that they're in camp. My younger son and I are writing a song together currently. So we have a Google Doc that every once in a while he can go and check from the office of his camp. My children are everything for me, and there is a very, very large line around my children and every other thing that exists in this world, and they know it. You know, my children will never ever. They'll have their journeys, and I'm sure they'll go to therapy and totally complain about what they complain about. But my children will know that I put them first. Every day of my life, every moment of my life. And I should say, I was sitting here with you, and my son was texting me. Just want you to know. I was like, dude, do you need me? Because I will interrupt this podcast right now.
Appropriately, yes.
My children are my reason. They're the point. You know, I used to think that my job was to carry my father. Now I feel like I have my father on one arm and my children on the other, and it is incredibly special. The greatest gift of my lifetime is being a mom, and I know that, you know, my hard experiences as a child made me the mother that I am, and my hard work on myself has made me the mother that I am. And I tell my sons all the time, when you're a mom, you know,
Yeah, right, exactly.
You know, they'll see. I only want my children to be happy, period. And I'm curious about them, and I respect them, and they're literally my favorite things are my children.
Are you surprised at how good of a mother you are?
I never say that I'm a good mother. I always just try. And I ask them sometimes, like, how am I doing? Am I doing okay? Am I giving you what you need? My husband says to me, you don't need to say that as much as you say.
No, I think that's reasonable. I really do. Yeah.
I'm in relationship with them, and I want to know how they're doing and how I'm doing. And if I'm a good mom, then that makes me cry. There's nothing that I want more in my life than that. That's it.
Shira, I want to read something that you wrote to wrap up our interview. And I love stories like this. I love nuancical ideas within articles and short stories.
Shira's so good at that.
Yeah, Shira, you're great at that. You're a wonderful writer.
She's amazing.
I mean, we only met a few weeks ago, but I've been reading some of your stuff, and I enjoy it so much. It comes to life, just like you do in this interview, by the way. But you wrote an article about retrieving your father's chair from the shul. And here's what you wrote at the conclusion of this article. The day I retrieved the Bima chair, Bima would be where the rabbi sits, the president, the gabbai, etc., during the services. 2 weeks after my 63rd birthday, 3 years after my father's death, was the day that the Marathon Jewish Community Center ceased to exist. That brings tears to my eyes. After the chair was deposited inside the U-Haul, with the help of a kind worker and a weeping office manager. I can see her. I can see that office manager. I returned to peek inside the sanctuary, still adorned with jewel-toned stained glass windows, featuring the 12 tribes of Israel. Details of the tribe of Levi, the musicians from the stained glass windows at the Marathon Jewish Community Center in Douglaston. I'm assuming they left those in the shul when they closed them down. Gone were the rows of wooden pews. Gone were the wall hangings with menorah plaques. Gone was the majestic Hebrew lettering on the back of the bima. Gone was the eternal light and the Torah ark. And gone were the bima chairs. This touched me a lot because my father's shul in Kitchener on Sterling Avenue really is quite an edifice. My father was involved in designing it. And I think to this day, there's something about beautiful shuls that are everlasting. From time to time, I go back and I drive by and I look at it. And all of those memories come flooding back, about going to Talmud Torah on Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, being in the services with my father and my family on Shabbat, on the high holidays, on Pesach, interacting with all the congregants there. And it really warms me, but it also makes me sad. I miss it. I really do miss it because it was the consummate time in my life of community.
Mhm.
Um, it seems like your father's shul meant an awful lot to you today,
Yeah,
as it did then. And that beam of chair sits at the front of your table, does it not?
it does.
Yeah. How was that experience for you, Shira?
I mean, it is so important to me. I also have my grandma Blanche's memorial plaque. I
Uh,
gave my brother, who's named after my grandfather, my father's father, Mordechai Leib. My brother is Mordechai Ari, and Morty. I just want to point out my brother considers it an act of child abuse that my parents gave him the name Mordechai Dicker. Whereas my mother said Mordecai. We didn't put an H. It's not a ch, it's a ka. Great. Mordecai in the 1960s and 70s with the last name Dicker. What are you doing to this? Anyway, all kidding aside, I dream about the shul. It was a mid-century modern building. I love shul buildings. Shuli and Lisa's shul
yeah, I
in
do too.
Auburn, Maine. Though
Mhm.
it was built in the 80s, I walked in and I love everything. I love the wing for the Hebrew school or the Talmud Torah, the fancy room where all the like upscale events are held. Our room, we had a gold room, the bridal suite, everything. This was a journey. I cried so much. I cried so much when I got this chair, but I also procrastinated. Part of the article is how I waited for the last minute because this is me. I just I procrastinate, and then it becomes this epic, hilarious saga of racing to the east side, getting the U-Haul out of this fakakta U-Haul place in Harlem, and just like every aspect, and clunking over the
Yeah.
RFK Bridge, the former Triborough Bridge, and just everything. And it never fails to amaze me how a journey going seems really long and coming back seems very, very quick. And coming back was my dad's Bema chair, and getting it upstairs. It is it's really something. It's very I love material objects. I also haunt my past when I'm able to. I like going back to the house. I will say that
Hmm.
when the Rabbi Gary Green, who lived in my parents' home, which belonged to his parsonage, belonged to the shul, when his mother died, I shamelessly paid him a shiva call, which is a nice thing to do, but we weren't that close. But his wife, who I had met at a rabbinical assembly convention, the second I opened the door, she said, "It's Shira Dicker. Let's show her house." I was so grateful to her because I was like, my intention was to be Menachem Avil, and then to like ask humbly if I could see the house. And she was like, "Here, let's go up to your old bedroom." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
I'm very sentimental. I'm very nostalgic. I very much my childhood as a rabbi's kid in Douglaston at the Marathon Jewish Community Center lives within me.
Yeah.
I am still I don't remember being 5 months old, but I'm still the 5 month old with the kiddish. I'm still the 6 year old. I remember distinctly one of my first shul memories is of Shavuos when I was 6, and the sailor dress I was wearing and standing outside with my father. I remember key moments. Neshamas, I'm sure you do also. I remember the Yom Kippur War. I remember the minute someone came careening down, the middle aisle to tell my father what was going on, and my father would make the announcement. All of these things, my brother's bar mitzvah, which had thousands of people, and all kinds of, and then my sister and I always talk about the time that one of the board members died and he was in his 50s. And when you're like 10 years old and the adults say he was so young, and you go, young?
Yeah, he's an old man. Yeah.
And I remember everyone was in shock and crying, and we're upstairs going like, are they crazy? Why did they think 50 is so young? All these, it lives in material objects, and Judaism is a tactile religion. We are a religion, we're not meant to deify, God forbid, but we do sanctify objects. We have holy objects, and that keeps us rooting. Judaism is so a religion of it's ruchaniut and gashmiut, reality. Gashmiut, we're rooted, and these things matter to us. Our candlesticks matter, and our kiddush cups, and the sanctuary, and where we sit, and the ner tamid. It's so beautiful. Neshama, I love that you said at the beginning, everything's Torah.
Mhm.
It's
I
I
like
don't, it yes, and how lucky are we? How lucky are we that this is our heritage, right? And it informs. I love how we started off, all the Jewy things that we say, and the way that we think, and the way that we speak among ourselves and each other. I constantly am filtering, whether it's Pirkei Avot, or whether it's a Rashi, or whether it's even a song, a song, a Carlebach tune, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so yeah.
There's something so distinctively rabbinical child about us. There really is. That's my conclusion for this panel. My experience, again, is through this panel and also in life with my sisters and otherwise. Rabbinical children, there's something very special about their soul because of where we come from. And I'm not trying to set us apart from any other people. Many people are special. Many people have beautiful souls. But we were brought up in environments where we were shown how to really think about other people. We were shown how to care in a very deeply empathetic way. We were taught how to develop our empathy. And along with that came some lack of privacy, right? Maybe not tending to our soul as much as we would have wanted. So, what I would like to do is conclude our panel discussion with perhaps some advice for any rabbinical parent who is watching this. And the first piece I would say is let your child discover his or her own unique spark, right? Let them find their own unique spark. Engage your child in conversation every single day. Be there for them. Talk to them. Let them know that you're listening to them, and listen. Listen. Because I think rabbis have a tendency to give advice a lot, right? Stop. Some of the greatest gift that we can have is when somebody listens really well. Shira, you mentioned before you're a good listener. Neshama, I think you're an excellent listener. And I think I'm a good listener as well. That's clearly from our rabbinical background. Allow your child to be a child. Let them be. Let them be. They are not they're not in the world for you to parade around and show them as almost like a special piece of furniture in the shul. Let them be a child. Let them have fun. Let them be silly, and let them be obnoxious like Shira was. Just kidding. Talk about your work. That's a big piece here. I was constantly asking my father to tell me about his visits to the jails, about individuals in the world whom he had met. Shlomo Carlebach, God bless his soul, came to our home. He came to our home. I remember waking up, and there he was sitting on the couch getting ready for the day. Yeah, because he had come to Kitchener, and he had sung and he was part of a program that we had. And I asked my father to sort of tell me, who is this man? Tell me more about him. Your father was so interesting, Neshama, just such an interesting man. He handed me his card. I think I told you this. And it said Solomon Carlebach, dog walker. I have that somewhere. I don't know where.
He had a lot, by the way, that said Shlomo Carlebach, travel agent.
Travel agent, yeah, stuff like that.
Actually, I came across one just today.
Yeah, I love that your dad had that character. Yeah. Help your child to feel that her or his is an integral part of the mission. Make them feel a part of the family. Make them feel they're part of the rabbinical job that you do. Is there anything you want to add to that, Neshama? Any advice?
Take a breath and find your Shemitah. Everyone in the world needs a break. I feel like rabbis, I don't want to generalize. I think there are a lot of people that just work and don't stop. Just remember what's important and take a breath. Mm-hmm. Because in that breath, you find space for your children.
Very good.
And yourself. And please, for God's sake, therapy. There's nobody I know that should not
ongoing therapy, right?
Please, please know yourself so that you can be a good human to others.
Good stuff. Shira, any advice?
Yeah, I mean, I'm Neshama. I don't know if I ever told this to you. You know, what's interesting is Avram's dad, and I mean, obviously, I did also, and Avram did, but Avram's dad met your father. I don't know if you know, my father met your father
Of
at
course.
JTS.
I
At
do.
JTS, and my father would tell stories of when Shlomo came to visit when my father was in
Yeah.
rabbinical school in the 50s. And like that, and he told that to me later in life, and and how everyone, it was basically like Mick Jagger showing up. So,
Weird, right?
the wives went crazy, right?
Yep.
And it was, I mean, I just love that so much. My advice is, I love how Neshama said she asks her boys, "How am I doing?"
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing and humbling. And I want to say that these days you might be the child of a rabbi who's a mom. Your mom might be a rabbi. My daughter-in-law, my youngest daughter-in-law, is the daughter of a female rabbi, Rabbi Michelle Goldsmith in Margate, Florida. That's a whole other trip, right? Um, I think it's real interesting. And I think a child can call their parent out on, okay, you don't have to be a rabbi with me.
That's right.
Be my mom, be my dad, right? Um, so I just so love this conversation. I think it is just so rich and so deep. And if I could just add one thing, I did grow up, and it's funny because it had nothing to do with money. We didn't have money, but we had prestige, I guess. Prestige, right? We had we had access. It really formed, and I don't know from how your father was, but Nisham, I know absolutely your dad was this way. I grew up without money consciousness because
Yes, me too.
we had, I grew up almost like with a Bernie Sanders socialisty take on money because we didn't need money. We had stuff that money can't buy. And my mother was very disdainful of if I wanted the latest, whatever, a Huckaboo shirt or Carver shoes. My mother, Dafka, would not get me the trendy thing, which I think is actually interesting. I think you do have to give into trends sometimes, especially with girls, but okay. But on the whole, I think it's a commendable trait. Um, so yeah, I think that I felt I felt that we were rich and we weren't. And we had the
You
stuff
were.
that money can't buy, but we were. It's the Ezehu Ashir Hasamech Bechalko. And also we were held up.
What does
You know,
that mean, Shira? What does that mean?
we were held up by the community. Okay, you see my nice smile?
Yeah, lovely smile.
The orthodontia of Dr. Krein, I think I got great care. My parents made a point of saying we paid, but I think I got extra special care. I think when we went,
I know
everyone
that. I know that feeling. Yeah.
we got the nicest we got the nicest challah from the bakery. Everyone wanted to make the rabbi's family. We had a crew that came and built our sukkah. We had a really nice sukkah, and so we had
Yeah.
that
You were
stuff.
lucky. You were
We
lucky.
got pumped.
Nicely.
And so
Nicely
I
said.
carry that with me. Like it is privilege, and it's not the privilege of having, again, stuff. We didn't have fancy furniture.
Yeah.
I went to school in Great Neck. Believe me, my wardrobe was not Karan. The girls from Great Neck had really nice clothes. We had other stuff and the better stuff, really. So
Beautiful.
I have to tell you something. I feel so at home with the two of you. I really do. It's so nice to be part of a panel discussion about being a rabbinical child with you. And I'm walking away from this thinking, yeah, you get my life. And I have a great sense that I get your life in many, many ways. And that means a lot to me because, we all go through our existential loneliness. And it's very difficult for people who are not rabbinical children to understand how we were brought up, to understand where we came from. Shira, you said it brilliantly. You're absolutely right. I am shit with money, really shit with money, right? I was not taught how to manage money, and I need to brush up at 64 years old. But I feel so wealthy. And Neshama, you said that. You are rich, right? You were rich.
Sure.
No, I feel that exactly. I have so many blessings through my life, through my spiritual life and otherwise. It's not money. It's not money that I chase or know, but I think so much of it is being brought up in Rabbi Shruga Feivel Rosenzweig's home and Gito Frimit Rosenzweig's home, the Rebbitzin. And I do want to finish by saying my father would not have been who he was, not have been the rock star of a rabbi who he was without my mother, really. And maybe we'll do another panel about moms at some point. I want to thank you guys for being part of this. I really, I appreciate it so much. And you did a great job. Each of you sort of reflecting your upbringing in such a unique, beautiful way. So God bless you. I do want to translate what you said before, Shira. Perkei Avot, Ethics of Our Father, says, who's a rich person? And it says, one who is happy with their lot. And I have this great sense that all three of us are. So kol hakavod, well done. I want to thank my listeners, my viewers, for being with us today. Please share this as far and wide as you possibly can, because I think there's a lot to take away from it. Emulate it and find your own zone. Find that place in life which makes you rock, which makes you a star, either a B star or an A star, whatever your predilection is. And I think that what we have spoken about today, the good, the challenges, maybe the not so good sometimes, is deeply inspiring, and that's what the show is all about. So we will be with you once again soon. I want to thank Shira Dicker and Neshama Carlebach for being my guest today, and we look forward to being with you again soon. Thank you, and God bless.